Welcome back to the Rumor Mill, where we stop the chatter and drop the facts. We have a critical update you need to see. Tropical storm Melissa is moving straight toward the island. This is breaking news and a serious threat. We're giving you the essential info dump with the storm's current track and everything you must do now to stay safe. Remember to like, share, ascend, and subscribe for more of the latest news updates. Let's see what TVJ News has reported on the matter.
A tropical storm watch is now in effect for Jamaica. This means heavy rain and winds associated with Tropical Storm Melissa could affect the country. Tropical Storm Melissa formed in the Central Caribbean today. Meteorologist TVJ's Ramin Robinson provided an update on the system.
This means that tropical storm conditions could pose a possible threat to Jamaica within 48 hours. Satellite radar and surface observations suggest that the area of low pressure over the Central Caribbean is developing a well-defined center, and we have already seen winds reaching 72 kilometers per hour.
Conditions are forecast to become more favorable for further development over the next few days.
It is expected to slow down over the Central Caribbean just towards the southeast of Jamaica. When the system is near Jamaica, it's expected to produce localized heavy rainfall, strong gusty winds, and possibly we could see some tropical storm force winds mainly across sections of the northeast and southern parishes late on Wednesday as well as on Thursday, while the rainfall is expected to continue into the weekend.
On Tropical Storm Melissa, we want to bring in our hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, also taking a look at it. Brian, when we look at storms, this has been one of the wildest cones, I think, that we have seen, at least for a first look.
Yeah, the cone doesn't really work for storms that are going to essentially stall and loop and not get out of their own way, and looks like that's going to happen. And unfortunately, we don't know exactly where the moisture is going to be and how it's going to feed into these mountainous islands, but there are parts of the Caribbean, if this gets up near Haiti, Dominican Republic, Jamaica, maybe Cuba, other mountainous islands, that may get feet of rain, maybe 3-4 feet of rain in some places, with a system like this that continues to pound moisture against the slopes of the mountains, which tends to enhance it. All right, here's the current situation. 50-mile-an-hour winds is what the estimate is from the Hurricane Center, 1,003 millibars measured by a ship that happened to be in the neighborhood. And so there's the system, and the center is over here, you can see. So the thunderstorms are back here, as we have seen with this system. Upper level winds are blowing in this direction, kind of tilting the thing over for now, but it's slowing down enough that it was able to develop a west wind on the bottom side of that circulation. So we end up with Tropical Storm Melissa. It has had the winds for a while. Here's the wider view on the visible satellite, and you can make out the upper level clouds, the wispy clouds here, kind of all blowing in that direction. So the upper level winds are blowing this way, but the lower level winds, you see them here, or these clouds moving that way, that's the trade winds, they're moving that way. So you have this going in the atmosphere like this, and that's why the thing is tilted over and why the intensification process is expected to be slow. These upper level winds, which is very normal for October, are expected to be there to some degree. Now, exactly the degree is an open question. There's where the model analyzes the center. It looks pretty accurate based on what we've seen over here. You can see these lines of clouds moving out. Those are an indication of moisture moving out into dry air. So there is dry air off to the east, so that's going to hold back the intensification process at least for a while, but as it sits over the super warm water, kind of all bets are off eventually. All right, here's that funky cone. Now, we don't normally do this. We put the line down the middle just so you can see kind of what's happening here. The idea is that the storm moves, kind of starts to turn to the north, and here by Friday, it's something near hurricane strength, slowly moving up toward Haiti and east of Jamaica. That's the idea, and there's decent consensus in the various forecast models that that's going to happen. And then when we look at Saturday and Sunday, the idea is that it just sits up there and maybe it makes a loop or whatever, stays in this general area, and we end up with a hurricane between Saturday and Sunday, and this thing is likely to sort of increase in size. In other words, it doesn't continue the move to the north and head on out to sea, as some of the models have been indicating. This is the thinking of the Hurricane Center. Now, we have a wide variety of possibilities when we look at the models, but let's just look at one to start here, where we can look at this moisture. This is the European model, and you can see we're already getting a stream of moisture into the southern parts of Hispaniola. That's the big island there with the 10,000-foot mountains. That's Haiti and the Dominican Republic on it. And we have dry air here, so Jamaica in the clear. We get a little bit of moisture coming into the western part, especially of Puerto Rico. All right, then moving forward in time, you can see the deep greens come in. We went all the way now through the weekend. Here we are all the way to Sunday. So this is kind of the end of the National Hurricane Center forecast. Now, if you remember their forecast, they kept it more up in here. The European model wants to continue it off to the west very, very slowly. This is 5 days from now, so it hasn't moved very far. But this puts a lot of the moisture in Jamaica and keeps it going in the southern part of the island here with Dominican Republic and Haiti. And then, look, they continue to go all the way a week from now, and it's still in here, maybe as a strong hurricane. If the upper level winds let up, there's some indication that they will, that we end up having a very strong hurricane there, and a lot of concern for Jamaica, not if the storm is in exactly that location, but just to be in the vicinity of all this moisture and wind, and the possibility of significant wind feeding that moisture into the mountainous islands. Now, when we look at the models, there they are. Okay, so what's this telling us? If we look at the consensus, just kind of blur your eyes here, the consensus of all of this is that the storm comes in, does what the Hurricane Center is indicating, and begins to turn to the north, and then kind of just delays in here, stalls in this area here, and then eventually goes something like that. It makes kind of an S. But eventually means this is all the way through the end of this month, 10 days from now, that it's that these lines are indicating. So sometime next week, that's the thinking, that eventually it turns north. But if you notice, where does it turn north? Some of them have it turning north pretty quickly. Others, the European ones, the red ones, are way out here turning north over Cuba. The Google Deep Mine, the blue ones, are up in here, quite a few of them up in there. So this wide zone from Cuba all the way over to here is certainly threatened, and because of the vicinity of all this, they put up the hurricane watch for the southern coast of Haiti there, and we'll just see exactly how this zigging and zagging and looping ends up working out. When we take all those lines, all that spaghetti, and say, okay, what does it tell us about the odds of where the storm will be in the next 10 days? This is all the total odds in the next 10 days. You see high confidence that it's here where the Hurricane Center puts it, and that's obviously in the short term. And then we have low confidence. Does it continue up this way? Some possibility. Over this way, as the European says. The Google Deep Mine tends to want to take it more like that in the middle of all this. So all open to possibility. The bottom line, though, is a long-lasting storm in the Caribbean. Why is it so long-lasting, and why is it zigging and zagging? Well, it's got to do with the jet stream. And here you see this is the storm right here. And here we have a dip in the jet stream over Florida. You can see it right there. Okay, here we are today, looking up here. Now we go forward in time, and we go up to Thursday, a couple days from now. And now you can see, look, the dip kind of is coming all the way down here and grabbing this and moving it north. So the GFS model actually says, okay, this is strong enough, the dip is strong enough, it's going to take it north up in this flow right here and take it over Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti, one of those two. So that's why that is. But the consensus is this is not strong enough to grab it. It's just going to nudge it to the north, as the Hurricane Center has indicated, and then it's going to move on, and we get a very flat flow in here that maybe has a little bit of a high pressure zone in there. It kind of nudges it off to the west, or maybe it doesn't move it much at all, and it's waiting for this dip here to drop down and come along, and that's sometime next week, depending on exactly the timing. And obviously, we're forecasting a week in advance, so nothing is perfect at that point. But it's in a situation here where we have high pressure to the east and the west, and nothing to really grab it and take it north. The huge threat here is rain, because, and potentially wind, but certainly rain. This is just a forecast through Friday, for example, and it just really depends on where worst of it is. But remember, right now it's on the east side of the system. It's not all the way around the system. So Dominican Republic, especially the south coast, is a threatened zone here south of the big mountains, and then we'll just see. But certainly all of these mountainous islands, even Puerto Rico, in the moisture zone, we'll have to see exactly where the bands of moisture set up and how exactly the thing tracks and how they intersect with the mountains and so forth. But if you look at this just through Friday, here we have huge rain amounts here on the southern peninsula in Hispaniola. Look at this, in the 18 to 24 inch range just through Friday. And we're talking about this thing being in the neighborhood for a week or more. So this is all indications are a very, very threatening situation for these areas, these mountainous islands and countries there in the Caribbean. And downstream, of course, Cuba will be threatened as well if it takes a track like the consensus seems to indicate. Guys?
Brian, are you surprised with the issuance of the alerts from the National Hurricane Center? Do they make sense to you? I'm only asking because of the movement of Melissa. There is still some big questions on where it could be, and it's possible that on Saturday and Sunday it's still pretty far south, away from Jamaica and Haiti.
Yeah, well, I mean, they just put up a tropical storm watch in Jamaica. That's for a possibility and on the chance that it continues that way, right? In Haiti, the thing is that it is such a vulnerable country that they're going to err on the side of being sure that people have time to get to safety. I mean, there are so many issues in Haiti, not just physical issues, but, political issues and violence issues and all kinds of problems in Haiti. So, they're going to try and get an alert out. And notice they only put it on a kind of narrow part of the country that no doubt they think is extremely vulnerable, which it is. That peninsula is very, very vulnerable. It takes a long time for people to move to a safe spot. People live in very, very unsafe locations on that island, unfortunately. So I think they're just trying to, alert people and give them plenty of time just in case.
Yeah, it's worthwhile. I think it's the Matthew was looking it up. The Tiburon Peninsula. That's the where we have the hurricane
Tiburon
watch.
Peninsula. That's exactly right.
And Port-au-Prince.
Right.
So, all right. Well, this isn't the last conversation we'll have about Melissa. In fact, it's the first one we're having, with many more to come. Fox Weather Hurricane Specialist Brian Norcross. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
We've got another named storm. Yes, we do. We are here to break it all down for you. Still, as you can see, as you look at the mess of ensemble forecasts, still a little bit of a question mark as to exactly where this will go. But we are here to break it all down for you. All right, let's take a look at Jamaica, Kingston Harbor here. Got a ship moving through. And Jamaica is one of the places that is still kind of in a holding pattern as to how significant the impacts will be from Melissa. So let's talk about it. Tropical Storm Melissa winds at 50 miles per hour, currently a little more than 300 miles to the south of Port-au-Prince, Haiti. Now, this is the same system that we were talking about yesterday that has all the ingredients it could need to strengthen, and that is part of the forecast. It's forecast to strengthen into a hurricane, but what you'll notice is we're already getting the squally weather here across portions of Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the ABC Islands have been stuck in that squally weather for quite some time. Aruba right now winds at 16 miles per hour. We were gusting over 30 about an hour ago, so you've got those squalls moving through there. Aruba, Curacao. Bonaire. And then you can also see, as we look at this now, this is the forecast cone from the National Hurricane Center. Looking at it, I know it just looks like a circle, right? But that is the forecast that we have. Because it's going to meander around for a couple days, that cone just doesn't stretch out as you would typically expect it to. And it is forecast to strengthen into a hurricane. What you'll notice right now is Jamaica firmly in the cone, much of Haiti, including portions of Cuba, portions of the Dominican Republic, as well in the cone. As we know, the cone does not represent everywhere that will feel the impacts. It just represents where that center could track. Got a tropical storm watch for Jamaica and a hurricane watch for portions of Haiti, the Tiburon Peninsula there of Haiti. But regardless of that, we're going to have impacts far and wide across this region because of the atmospheric moisture. So what you're seeing here is the American model. So I'm starting you out with the American model. Here's our center of circulation. The reds that you're seeing on this map are indicative of high atmospheric moisture, which equates to heavy rainfall, flooding rains, possibly catastrophic rains, if the forecast here verifies. You can see it lifting up across Hispaniola as we head into the latter part of this week, and this is bringing copious amounts to the Dominican Republic, amounts of rain to the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico before it kind of zooms off there to the east. Now, this is the European model, and same thing, still the atmospheric moisture, but what you'll notice is it brings that center of circulation farther westward, certainly brings more impacts to places like Jamaica, so you'll have to be watching that very closely, but it brings it farther westward in the Caribbean, so it kind of diminishes the intensity of some of those impacts that you might see over Hispaniola. The forecast here showing maybe over a foot, especially west of Santo Domingo, some heavy rainfall here for portions of Jamaica, but of course this is going to change based on where the system eventually ends up tracking. Those numbers are based on what the National Hurricane Center is putting out as their official forecast. You can see some of those rainfall totals here, especially west of Santo Domingo here on the southern side of the Dominican Republic, and of course with that type of rain on that type of topography, it is very mountainous terrain that could lead to problems, landslides and mudslides and flash flooding. When you're talking about a mudslide, you can see it here. It is basically when the ground just cannot handle any more of that water, and it is going to cause, a lot of damage when you're talking about mudslides. It can move really, really fast. It can be very destructive. It can kind of clear out everything in its path. So that's one of the concerns in this topography, along with the flash flooding and all of that we could see. So in terms of the season, we still have about 11% of the season left. You'll notice that we typically see activity really starting to diminish as we head through October and November, but hurricane season officially lasts through the end of November. Right now we're on Melissa. If we did get another named storm, it would be Nestor. But hopefully, Molly, I think a lot of people would be like, it'd be nice just to be done at Melissa. That would be great.